Good morning, everybody. Kindly give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see me and if you can hear me. Okay, fantastic. This and he is the founder of the Blockchain Hub in Cairo, Egypt, and he will be taking us through blockchain, its uses, essentially just the basics of what blockchain is. If you have any question, write it in the chat. You are welcome to write your questions in English and in French. We will do our best to answer you in either language. Hussein, I'm going to hand over to you now for the next hour, and I'm going to excuse myself from the stage as you go on with your training. So you can go ahead and start sharing your screen.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Lorraine, for the intro.
Awesome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Pan-Africa Tech Bootcamp. My name is Hussein, and I'm the founder of the Blockchain Hub Egypt. It's basically an online platform dedicated to teaching the fundamentals and basics of this groundbreaking technology. I remember first hearing about it back, I think, 2015, 16, with, I'm sure all of you heard about Bitcoin being the first practical application to this, revolutionary technology. I've been a blockchain addict ever since. And I'm really excited to just going through this, I would say, crash course. So let's just jump in. Do you all see my screen? Lorraine, if you could just confirm, because I just have to. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so blockchain. I'm sure you've heard about it a lot in the news lately. This technology and institutions and startups and blockchain startups. So I wanted to state that blockchain is this groundbreaking technology is going to change humanity's interactions forever. I call it the decentralized revolution. So before going into what blockchain is, I wanted to start with ledgers. I mean, why would we start with ledgers, and what are ledgers? So when you think about ledgers and records, record keepers and stuff, so we think about an archive or a file or something that you input and you keep track of transactions or information in a ledger, like So if you're in accounting, it's a very famous and well-known term that you just input all the transactions. And if you think about ledgers in a broader sense, it's basically a record of information and data. And you can use that ledger to transfer information, transfer value, transfer whatever. I mean, you could just record any kind of interaction online or whatever using this ledger. And you could do it online or offline. So at the beginning, ledgers were basically offline, just books or pages and pages of just transactions and information recording, ownership of assets, information, data. It could be practically anything. So when we think about ledgers now and this record of information in our new digital economy, or this digital economy we're living, any kind of interaction you can think of, anything at all. So when we talk about your bank accounts, you trust the bank to keep and maintain your ledger of transactions and the balance of your funds in the bank, and also helps you to send and receive money from other parties. Your emails, you can think of any email provider. They use a record or a ledger somewhere. It's as a form of files and an archive where they store all the transfer of information in the form of emails between you and your friends or your colleagues at work. So land registries, medical records, anything you could think of is recorded somewhere on a trusted, and we're going to attest we're going to challenge the word trusted, centralized record keeper. And this is the key in when we lead our way into why these centralized institutions are a problem, or what are the disadvantages of working with these or using these record keepers. So basically, as we all know, I mean, most of the developing countries still use, if you're going maybe to the land registry, or you want to renew your ID, or anything that has to do with record keeping, most of it is paper-based. So we use papers and archives to store and renew these kind of certificates, for instance. So, and if they're using some kind of digitized system, an Excel file or something, you know for a fact that when you visit any of these institutions, they're basically, sometimes they have their system down, or their filing system is prone to hacks or just damage. That's I mean, these are just all common problems. And in some cases, you might think, as the institutions like financial institutions like banks, they have these barriers to entry for you to access this economy or access this service. Basically, if you don't, just a simple fact, if you don't have an ID, you can't do anything. Practically, just open a bank account without an ID. And we know that maybe 1.8 billion people around the world don't have IDs. So this is just another whole conversation. But these are the kinds of barriers in place for most people to just interact with these kind of services. And finally, we know that, I mean, people are not perfect, and if there's this centralized entity that's maybe in charge of your land ownership certificate, I mean, someone can just take a bribe somewhere and change the details or information with this certificate, and so this trusted centralized party might not be as trustworthy as we might think. So this introduction, this lead up to blockchain, and we hear this word a lot, decentralized ledgers, and when I mean, I want you to think about blockchain as it's a technology. I mean, it's not an application, it's not a company, it's not I mean, it's touted as the new internet, but it's actually, quite simply, it's a new way of recording any kind of information on the internet. So think about any kind of information you can think about, with your emails, with financial transactions, anything you can think of. Communication, you can do it through blockchain technology. And this technology just empowers people to transact in a peer-to-peer manner. And when I say peer-to-peer, means person-to-person interaction. You don't need someone in the middle, like a third party, or someone in the middle to govern this kind of interaction between people. So decentralized, distributed. So we talked about, like a minute ago, about centralized ledgers. So when you think about decentralized ledgers, think about this exact same file. If you're going to the land registry and you have your file or whatever record that records your ownership of a car, or maybe just the ownership of your piece of land or house, then this file is recorded across multiple computers that are connected to the internet around the world. It could be multiple computers or servers that are just scattered all over. So if just one thing happens to one of them, the rest keep on working and keep on maintaining exactly the same record. So, like I said, it could be transfer of money, transfer of ownership, transactions, IDs, email correspondences. I mean, think about anything online that is recorded somewhere, that it could be recorded in a different way using blockchain technology. And this global network, or this decentralized network that runs this new filing system, the new distributed ledger, they communicate together using, I mean, obviously the internet. And once they reach agreement on the state and the validity of the information that is recorded, which is called consensus, the information is recorded on this ledger forever. I mean, it becomes just part of the history, because all of these computers worldwide, what they do is maintain exactly the same copy of this record. You don't depend on this one single point of control, or this entity that controls the record. So why is it called blockchain? Quite simply, I mean, it's how, like we said, how this information is stored. So think about it as when you have like an Excel file, maybe, and you have these cells in the Excel file. If you're just using Excel, you use all these cells. So think about the block as like a packet, or like a box or a cube where you just can store amounts of information. Like we said, it could be anything into these blocks. And once this block or this cell is filled with information, a next block is generated, and they all tied together with a chain. And we're going to understand the significance of this chain and significance of this dependency of the chain of the blocks, which is the blockchain. So let's take a very simple example, okay? So let's say we are transacting, or just two people called Alice and Bob, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Alice and Bob if you just attended any online presentation or anything. Alice and Bob are very famous two people who are just always in the mix and always doing transactions, and are always an example. So Alice and Bob, they transact using the Pan Africa Tech Foundation token, which does not exist, but I mean, it's some kind of thing or some kind of piece of information that they exchange online. So instead of having this exchange done through a centralized entity, what happens is they exchange this token or this thing online, and this transaction between Alice and Bob is recorded into the block. And not only that, but a timestamp and their identities or pseudo identities. I'm going to mention that in just a second. And finally, a hash is recorded into this block. So let's take a step back. So this interaction between Alice and Bob is a transaction or a transfer of value or information. And it's recorded into this hypothetical block that records all similar transactions, like the transaction done between these two people. And finally, when the block, when the network of computers and people who run this network that records such information generate a new block, what happens is a mathematical thing, like a mathematical problem or something, is generated, and they use these, and the input of these transactions are used to form a unique hash or unique fingerprint that is unique just to this block, based on the information that is input into the block. So if any kind of change happens to these transactions, automatically the fingerprint changes, okay? So the next thing, once this block is filled, a new block is formed. And this new block, what happens is, when it comes to, I mean, other people like Alice and Bob and their friends, family, colleagues, they transact, and all of these transactions are used and are recorded in the new block. And when we generate this new block takes the hash or the fingerprint of the prior block. So block number 2, I'm going to take this unique fingerprint from block number 2, put it into like an equation, add the new transactions, and generate a new hash, a new fingerprint. Just mentioned in the chat box if we're still online, I guess. Yes, okay, awesome. Okay, so moving on. So like I said, this new block has the information of the previous block, which generated this fingerprint, and the new block generates this new hash and fingerprint. So this dependency, these chains of blocks are all connected to each other using this unique system of dependency. So they are all chained together to form this, I mean, immutable. And we're going to just understand what immutable means. What does immutable mean? What's so special about this way of recording information? Simply because I mean, this mechanism of forming these unique identifiers, these hash or these fingerprints, form this dependency where each block depends on the information recorded in the previous one to issue this unique new fingerprint. So let's say anyone tries to edit or delete or anything in previous blocks, automatically this person changes everything that follows. And if this kind of attack happens or is attempted, automatically the network blocks this attack and is automatically flagged. So this is what brings security and dependency to this type of technology, and how it's called. I mean, it's immutable, it's tamper-proof, and it's tamper-proof, something that cannot be edited, cannot be deleted, cannot be changed. So this is the main essence of what gets that causes this insane admiration to this new way of recording on information online. So, like we said, the main characteristics and the advantages of using distributed ledgers or decentralized blockchains. So it's immutable, like you said, it's tamper-proof, it cannot be edited, information cannot be deleted, it's auditable. So this is one of the things that's quite peculiar. So with centralized ledgers, only the people who generate or store this information and the ledger or the record only have access to the record. But with decentralized ledgers or blockchain, the record is public. And when I say public, anyone can audit the transaction information. So next is, like we said, it's decentralized. So the record does not depend on a single point of control or failure. So we have exactly the same record redundantly updated and stored across this network of computers. And finally, this kind of interaction, and when Alice and Bob send this token, or they exchange value through this new way of exchanging value on the blockchain, there's no central party or there's no third party that governs or enables this kind of interaction, because it's all based on a peer-to-peer network. So we depend on the network to transmit the information and store the information. Moving on, I mean, when it comes to security and trust, I mean, how secure is your information when it's stored and maintained amongst thousands of people and computers around the world, which you don't know? Because, I mean, before, traditionally, we depend on a trusted third party or trusted record keeper to maintain or to enable these kinds of interactions. So you trust your bank to keep a record of your funds. You trust maybe an email or famous email provider to keep a record and maintain your emails and your exchange with other people. You trust a social network to record your data. But when it comes to decentralized networks and blockchain, so you put your faith in people who are scattered around the world that you don't know, and you trust them to store and enable these kinds of transactions. So what prevents these people from maybe taking control of the network or acting in any bad way to change or do anything to these to this network and just change anything in the record? So most, if not all, of the decentralized blockchains, they use two things to secure the network. First, like we mentioned before, there's always, with each of these networks, there's a kind of a rule book or a set of rules in code. So when it's something in code, in computer code, it cannot be changed, and it's called a consensus algorithm. I mean, consensus algorithm, and consensus means agreement. So before information are stored in these blocks, the set of information needs to be validated and authenticated using cryptography. And cryptography is basically the simple. It's not simple, but it's just simply how simple text and simple piece of information that is readable can be encoded and formed like this code that only the two participants that are involved in the transaction or this exchange of information can only read it. So the network of computers and people who run the network, they use this agreement rulebook to store information. And second, there's an incentive mechanism. And I'm sure all of you heard of the first, Bitcoin. So when it comes to Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin is a financial application. It's a monetary system, and Bitcoin itself is like a digital asset or a digital token that rewards the network that runs this new financial system in the form of this digital token as a thank you for them acting in a good way and maintaining the network and facilitating all these kinds of transactions. So what are the use cases for such a technology? And before I move on, I'm just going through very basic use cases, but at the end, I'm just going to talk about how just blockchains, applications, and real life use cases are just endless and bound by just the imaginations of people, basically. So file storage and data storage. Like we said, if we take, for example, our land registry department or whatever that just records our ownership of assets. So back with file storage and centralized institutions. So I, for one, when I go to the local DMV or the land registry just to I don't know, if I just want to change and just update my ID. I mean, the place is just swarming with people, obviously, and just files scattered all over the place, and it's just total chaos. And this system of this filing system, we depend on these institutions to maintain our files and our data and trust them to maintain an honest and updated state of all of our assets, basically, or our information. So these institutions, they are prone to obviously loss or just damage. Let's say just a flood hits or something, and this whole archive is destroyed. Or if they're using a filing system, like an online filing system, it's definitely centralized. It's just maybe they have just one, or maybe a backup somewhere. So there's maybe the internet connection might be down, or the file just corrupted, and we lose all your data. And like we said, maybe the guy who was working there just corrupt and just took a bribe and changed the title, the deed to your house or your land, and you lose, and you go all into this legal lawsuit. So think about all of these problems with conventional institutions. And when it comes to blockchain, there's a very simple solution. So let's take the example of the title to your house. So the title of your house is a form of like a plain text file. Let's say it's a PDF file. And what happens is, to store this contract or store this file onto the blockchain, this new way of recording information, something happens is we generate a hash, like we previously mentioned, like this unique fingerprint that transforms this plain text file, this unique PDF file, into a unique hash, this code. And this code is recorded into a block, and this block becomes part of the blockchain, which, like we said, is immutable, and they're all connected to each other. So your deed becomes another transaction, or becomes another piece of data that is recorded within this block and forms the hash to the next one and the next one. And this whole record is recorded on the decentralized network of computers. Okay, so let's say I went back, or there's some kind of dispute, and someone else claims that I have the deed. I mean, I own this piece of land. So we submit this file to the global decentralized, or this global decentralized network of computers, and the review takes seconds, because what happens is there's a cross-reference check between the original and the hash of the original. So if it matches, it's going to give a valid return, and if it's not, it's just going to be invalid. It's that simple, because the code is unique to this just one file. If anything changes in this file, the hash or the fingerprint changes. It's that simple. So when we think about the advantages of such a solution and the possibilities, think about, like we said, the immutability. I mean, no one can ever change. I mean, unless someone just forcibly just takes your land, you have a piece of history in your hand. No one can claim otherwise. No one can claim that they have changed or edited anything in this contract or your ownership of the land. And this is revolutionary. And think about all the cost saving involved. I mean, you have a permanent and record of history of all the transactions and all the data on the blockchain. And as we've seen, as we're going to see in just a couple of minutes, how fast the validation process is to validate a piece of information using blockchain. So just to go through quickly some other industries where this revolutionary technology is used. So with, let's say, I mean, supply chain and shipping. I mean, I for one would claim that, I mean, would definitely say that shipping is, I mean, most of the cargo, if not like 80-90% of the cargo moved worldwide are on ships. They just, ocean freight is, I mean, is one of the leading industry, biggest, most, I mean, essential industries on the globe. And there is an insanely amount of paperwork involved, not to mention the third parties, the service providers just involved in just one single transactions of just shipping one thing from point A to point B. So think about how blockchain can revolutionize, and just all the cost saving involved, and all the tracking, or how tracking paperwork could be easier and tamper proof, like we said. So no one can actually change anything that has been recorded on the blockchain. As a consumer, at some point, you can track a certain product you just buy at the store all the way back to its origins, because each and every step that product takes along the supply chain is recorded on this distributed, decentralized record, which is the blockchain. And next, with intellectual property, first thing that comes to mind are maybe music producers and songwriters. And you always hear in the news this, I mean, some producer or singer claims that some other singer stole their beats, or stole their song, or stole their, I don't know, rhythm or whatever. Or so imagine each songwriter or each producer has their, just record their song with their beats, with anything onto the blockchain. So whoever claims to be the first one to have, I mean, just to be the one who recorded this piece of music, we can just head back and quickly check and validate, not just trust. We don't need to trust anyone, because we can validate on this new public record. Okay, so next we have healthcare management. And if I can just say that Estonia and its government now, they piloted this new blockchain initiative where their citizens have a medical ID which is anchored to the blockchain. And what happens is now all the citizens have their medical records and history in this decentralized record or ledger. So if you're a patient and you go to any hospital or clinic, they don't depend on you to bring in the information and your medical history. Now they can, with your obviously help and access, and they ask you basically for access for your information now. So you control your information. So what happens is now they can see all the history or your medical history. And think about how innovative it is when medical practitioners and doctors can see all your history and try to work out customized medication based on your medical history. It's just mind blowing. And finally, credentialing and academic certificates. And I, for one, as a business owner, I tell you that and a lot of businesses face this issue with applicants having false credentials and false certificates, and just if you just hop online and you can just have a certificate from Harvard or Princeton or whatever, and you just claim you went to this college, or claim you went to this institution, or claim you got this, finished this course somewhere. So as an employer, I don't need to trust that person. I can just validate and just cross-reference this this certificate or whatever he's or she's just providing as proof of experience, and immediately check its validity. I don't need to trust anyone. I need just to validate. Finally, with blockchain and the rapid innovation, blockchain, when we combine it with other technologies, I'm talking about IoT, the Internet of Things, and AI, we have a revolution coming, people. I mean, we have something that's just going to change our interactions forever. So we're surrounded now with devices, wearables. I mean, everything now is connected to the internet. I mean, objects and devices, I mean, everything is now connected to the internet. And with devices, with their sensors, they gather immense amounts of data. And for any human being to make sense of this data, I mean, we need a super brain or like Superman to kind of make sense of the patterns of this data. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in. And these mini brains, they kind of figure out in a meaningful way these patterns of data, and they just go through this immense amount. And finally, we have the final piece of the puzzle. We have this immutable record. We have this global network that enables peer-to-peer transactions, or just person-to-person, or actually machine-to-machine interactions, because everyone has access to this new economy and this new way of exchanging value and information. I mean, it's quite revolutionary. And it's just this we're just hopping onto a new era of digitization and access that humanity has never experienced before. So, thank you. I really hope this crash course was beneficial and you learned something today. Blockchain is way bigger. I mean, it's just what we went through today is just not even a drop in an ocean. Blockchain is going to change humanity forever. I'm a big believer, and I sleep, eat. I mean, blockchain is everything. And as a thank you and as a real life use case to the technology, we're offering the certificate of attendance to this course. And what's cool about it is that this certificate is anchored to the blockchain. So if you head down to the blockchainhubeg.com, and let's just like a quick demo of things. So I'm just going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share a tab. So if you head on to the website and /verify, and it's just going to take you to the certificate verification box. And it's quite easy. If once you get your certificate in your name, you can just drag and drop or just select the file. So if it's a valid certificate, it's just going to give you a document is valid. It's just that easy. Or if anyone changes the certificate in any way, or claims to have attended this course, it's just going to give them an invalid proof. It's that simple. So I wanted to emphasize that, please, once you get the email, just download the file. Do not save as, because even the slightest change to these files renders them invalid. I mean, the hashing process is that specific and that sensitive. So imagine this level of sensitivity to the information that is recorded, and think about all of the possibilities in place. I really hope you enjoyed this crash course as much as I did, and I'm open for questions.